The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Okay, welcome to this Earnestly Speaking podcast. I'm your host, Ernest, EJ Christian, coming to you on a late Wednesday night here in South Florida. On the line, of course, as we promised a couple weeks ago, post-Iowa Caucus, or close to post-Iowa Caucus. Marc Francois.
Oh, maybe. Iowa almost post-caucus.
Yeah, I'm sneezing. We got a lot to get to.
Bless you.
Good Lord. All right.
Bless you.
You know,
good.
you know what? I might even edit it out because the chaos in the last couple of days, political spectrum, deserves that.
Yeah, it's been a quiet week, hasn't it?
Let's say the least. Where should we start first? State of Union, impeachment, or Iowa?
Okay, well, let's just do State of the Union because that'll be a quick one. I didn't watch it.
Well, I guess
that's easy.
Look, I'm not getting into the details of what you said, what Trump said. There's no point. The highlights.
Why waste breath on it? Yeah, we know he lied profusely.
Well,
he put on a good show.
And to be fair, even the Trump supporters in this podcast, every president embellishes the truth or lies outright.
No, but there were numerous like badly demonstrable lies. Like when he said we got 7 million people off of food stamps, that's just wrong. We've gotten about 4 million people off of food stamps. And I'd be curious to know when you dive into those numbers, how many of those people getting off food stamps are because Trump moved the line on what qualifies people for SNAP benefits.
Well, that's what part of it. You ever notice Trump's voice? You ever notice Trump's voice though when he does the State of the Union? Like his low register is so weird. Like I'm so used to being so loud and abrasive that whenever he talks like like that low register voice is so fucking weird.
Well, at the end of the day, the people that like Trump, they have found a way through Fox News and through very carefully targeted social media ads, and certainly with no shortage of help from Mark Zuckerberg's protocols, to keep the message that they want delivered to the people that they depend upon most. And at the end of the day, in the House and in the Senate, if you upset Trump's base, which represents about 30% of the electorate, 38% of the electorate, depending on who's doing the counting, they're going to screw you in a primary, and you're going to get unseated by somebody that toes the line because of just some of the, structural vulnerabilities that people face. And they, apart from Mitt Romney, don't see the larger obligation.
Didn't Trump have a falling out with Fox?
And many agree.
Well, didn't he have a falling out with Fox and Friends for a little while? A little falling out? A little timeout, you call it?
There's nobody that Trump is loyal to apart from his children and himself.
Hey,
that's it.
He's a good family man,
He'll talk shit about and then praise just about anyone. Until it was convenient after 2011, he was giving money to Chuck Schumer and Senator Clinton and all of that.
Anywhere the wind blows.
Exactly.
And folks, that's a Queen lyric for the record. Yeah, it's funny. I actually traditionally watch State of the Union every year. This is the first one I think I've missed in maybe 7, 8 years. I always watch it. I just didn't watch. I watched pieces of it, but I didn't watch the entire thing.
I really do my best to tune into Hannity and Tucker Carlson and the other side from time to time, try to see what's trending on Fox News and whatnot. I just can't listen to the president speak.
So you're there. Yeah, that
can't do it.
This is the fourth one.
Can't do it.
You can't anymore, huh?
It's just such an affront on my my ears and on my snowflake libtard academic elitist principles.
No, I get it. I get it.
But no, I mean it's just the thing is kind of it goes along perfectly with what Speaker Pelosi said regarding why she tore up the document in the first place, and that's it was I forget what she called it, but something of mistruths. But it was just riddled with lies, demonstrable falsehoods, and it completely breezes over all the disgusting and inhumane things that has gone on over the last 3.5 years. It says nothing of the climate crisis we face, and it really doesn't talk about the country. It was really more about, as most things are connected to the 45th president, about his own self-aggrandizement. And all across the board with the really beautiful reuniting of the soldier home from war and his wife, and Rush Limbaugh has stage 4 cancer and they give him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, but
it felt
not
like,
to speak ill of a man with stage 4 cancer, but he's been a pretty disgusting human being for a lot of his career.
It really felt
all
like
theatrics.
It really felt like a reality show, though. Like watching The Apprentice, like something like that. Like watching the entire. I didn't watch the entire.
Well, and that's what a lot of the reviews said.
Yeah, it felt like a dramatic reality show.
Yeah, exactly. And when you talk about a president that is so willfully ignorant and who so flagrantly disregards history, tradition, responsibility, and any sort of grasp whatsoever for the larger mandate that comes along with the office of the presidency and the person that sits behind the desk. It's just so sad that the Republican Party, going all the way back to the primary, saw fit to allow him to become the torchbearer just for the sake of judges and deregulation.
Yep. I know a lot of Republicans that I'm personally friends with that actually either are Republicans still or have left the party, but they still somewhat support Trump because they're still getting the things they want passed, like some of the conservative, which you will, leaning.
Do most of these people make over $500,000 a year?
None of them do make $500,000 a year, unless they're drug user, unless they're pushing drugs or something.
Well, then they're voting against their own interests. Congratulations.
No, I mean, yeah, right. I mean, it's just I get it. You want,
Yeah.
a lot of conservatives who are, pro-life, and Donald Trump is, barking up the pro-life thing, and show up at the March of Life.
Well, and that's a legitimate gripe I have with the Democratic establishment too, is that they, as a whole, haven't been able to successfully sort of find a place for the moderate liberal, the person who maybe doesn't have a problem with gay rights, but is pro-life.
And strange enough, Mark, Barack Obama was the closest one they had to that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he publicly hemmed and hawed about LGBT, about gay marriage, for instance.
Yeah.
For a long time. I mean, almost quoting verbatim President Bartlett's position in the West Wing until Joe Biden forced his hand. And now, we don't even really think about it anymore. But yeah, that's a great point.
Do you think Barack's views changed on it as time went on, or you just think he did it for political points?
I was going to say my guess is probably something along the lines of, I think even as a Christian, didn't necessarily have a problem with it one way or the other. And obviously I'm totally speaking for a person I've never met.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I would venture to guess that it was one of those things that's like maybe he was kind of neutral and then started to see sort of the legal, I would imagine as he became an attorney and a law professor, sort of the legal iniquity of how things were constructed.
Right.
And regardless of one's own faith, your sort of duty to the law goes against that. And I venture to guess he that's probably where he fell, and then, now it doesn't matter.
Do you know who he reminds me of, actually? He reminds me of me. Because once upon a time, I was pro-life across the board. Didn't give a shit what anything else. I'm against abortion. That's it. And I started learning the difference between actually pro-choice, what's really pro-choice, which was actually, and being against that. Like, getting older, maturing, realizing that it's not about the baby. It's about women's rights. And and I grew into that. I grew into learning.
Well,
that.
exactly, and that kind of ties into me and my death penalty stance. In that I, fundamentally, at its most base level, I don't necessarily oppose the death penalty. I think there's a place in a criminal for it, but it only functions if either A, you presume, or B, you achieve complete infallibility within the criminal justice system. But as long as even one person could be put to death for a crime they didn't commit because of some loophole, fuck up, racist act, whatever the resulting, set of circumstances are, you can't have it. And so, like, for me, I think, I think maybe you and I were similar in the sense that, like, I was kind of, morally opposed, but as I understood the legal definitions of abortion and what it meant to be pro-life, I went, ew, no, I don't like that. And then I've just completely evolved on the issue anyway.
Right. Well, but back to the stadium real quick. What was your thoughts on the Nancy Pelosi turning of the papers after the speech?
I mean, it was a cute gesture, and it's going to make for a great meme and everything. But really, unless it's followed by a serious push and a swift kick, a swift swing of her stiletto into Tom Perez's ass, and like yesterday, it's not going to matter.
Some there too, like the people who pissed off about it. People are saying, "Well, this is why Trump will win in 2020." Like, first of all, the folks who don't like what she did were never voting for her side anyway.
No, really, I mean, it's just a question of turnout, because those who, like, you've pretty much reached the, like, maximum, like, the tipping point of where you're going to get of who you can convince. There's a lot of independents in the middle who stayed home, didn't participate. Turning those people out and getting them into the process is key. In swing states and red states, fighting voter suppression is key when you talk about states like Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri. And I think a Democratic nominee who, regardless of what their actual skin color is, doesn't pander to people of color, but actually takes on policy positions that will improve the lives of all people, but recognizes the needs, wishes, and demands of communities of color that have been long ignored by the political system at large, right, but taken advantage of in so many ways by the Democrats.
Right.
At least, since the Southern strategy.
Is it, that whole thing between the, Trump not shaking her hand, going into the end of the speech when she the papers and stuff, it's just that whole thing is just the animation of just where we are as a society.
Yeah, look, you have to be, when you're talking about dealing with somebody that is so crass and so devoid of any kind of moral compass, measure of shame, basement in terms of, like, place they'll go when talking shit. You gotta be permitted certain acts of defiance, regardless of the somber nature of your position or what you're doing. And I think Nancy holds her nose and her tongue far more often than she should have, or probably I could have. So I'm not, whether I personally would do it or what have you, I'm not going to personally begrudge her acts of defiance. And on that one in particular, I thought it was pretty fucking funny.
Yeah, so I thought it was kind of hysterical. That was kind of hysterical, actually. And for the record, Mike Pence didn't shake his hand either.
Because it's like he is a toddler, and that shit will keep him up all night watching TV.
Yeah.
Like, and she knows that, and she loses absolutely no sleep whatsoever.
No, she's okay with it.
Because now, not only is that going to be running all night, but the clapping thing is going to be running all night, and it's going to keep him up all night.
Yeah, and here's kind of sort of the genius of it all for her, I guess, or her end, if you want to look at it, is that it kind of takes away from the speech, what he was talking about.
To an extent, because it at least in part shifts the conversation. Look, the conversation from, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Fox News is not going to change.
Right.
Judge Jeanine, Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, they're going to say what the hell they're going to say no matter what.
No.
You've got a handful of honest-to-goodness newsmen and women left, like Chris Wallace, that will report the news and to the extent that it is possible, try to represent everything fairly.
Right.
But look, they have the biggest audience. Period. When you look at total viewership, they have a much larger market share than do MSNBC or CNN. Granted, I don't know the numbers well enough to know if you put CNN and MSNBC together, if that combined
I don't know.
eclipses Fox, but I don't know. Anyway,
to be fair though, too, also
the people that watch that,
this is gonna sound
the
petty.
people that watch that channel pretty exclusively, and they believe what they're told.
Of course. Now, to be fair, I'm not defending Trump here. If you're trying to impeach me and trying to get me fired from my job, why the fuck would I shake your hand anyway? For the record, just saying. Not defending Trump here, but this being logical here. I wouldn't want to touch your hand.
Because Constitution.
Where does the Constitution say you shake your hand?
No, that's what I talk about when I say like the larger mandate of the office of the presidency. There is a certain decorum. No, dude, come on, no, that is. But that is exactly But that is exactly the problem. Like, it's those little, like, choose kindness, choose decorum,
but it's phony as
choose
fuck, Mark. You
behave,
know this, dude.
choose to act the way your mother would, like your mom would smack you and tell you, shake that lady's hand. You know what I mean?
She's trying to
act
fire me,
the way your mother
dude.
would tell you to act when you're 9.
But she's trying to fire me again.
Doesn't fucking matter,
dude.
I got a job. No, but here's the thing: I got a job. They got a job. And number one, and number two, any real baller would look at the scoreboard and go, "Bitch, you ain't getting 67 on me. I will shake your hand all night." Because you can impeach me, you can tear up my speech, you can clap at me, you can insult me, do whatever the fuck you want. I'm going to get away with it.
True.
That would have been like the more baller thing to do, but he can't resist the temptation. He gets to do it every time.
I see what you're saying there. Don't get me wrong. I see what you're saying, but again, the human side of me, I can kind of sort of feel what Trump is going through in that situation.
No,
again, not defending the guy, just telling you.
Here's the thing. That's why the office, the Constitution, the bicameral system, the stage demands that you take the humanity and the emotion out of it and fulfill your constitutionally mandated responsibilities. You put your own petty differences aside, and you, the holder of the office of the presidency, shake hands with the Speaker of the House, because it doesn't have anything to do with their political party or their positions or their personal feelings about you. You have a larger duty to the framers and anyone else who died in order to protect the Constitution.
Again, I get it, Mark. I totally get it. And by the way, I'm not saying you're wrong. I actually think you're correct.
Your civics teacher would agree with me anyway.
No, right. I think you're correct.
Your 11th grade U.S. history teacher would totally be on my side about this.
I'm just saying I can understand the human element there, because I might be that petty too and say, go fuck yourself.
Well, sure. I tend to be that petty as well, but my title doesn't begin with Mr. Speaker or Mr. President.
Of the United States, right? That's true.
So, fortunately, I'm afforded that pettiness until such time as
yes,
I'm addressed that way.
Good point. So today, as this is recording, he's now acquitted from the Senate. No surprise, of course, because remember, as we all heard during the weekend, there'll be no witnesses brought up to testify. So of course he's acquitted. No one's surprised about that. What's your? I mean, I guess wrap it up, man. What do your thoughts on the impeachment? Okay, because again, he got impeached by the House Democrats.
Whoopie-fucking do.
Right,
we knew exactly what was going to happen. Mitch McConnell told us what was going to happen. History is going to shine brightly upon congressional Democrats and Mitt Romney, and not too many other people who occupy that chamber today.
Mitt Romney, man, committed suicide. His career could be over as a Republican, as we know it.
Who cares? Who cares?
No. I'm saying.
Guy's worth $250 million, walks on water in his state, and frankly, you know what? Here's the thing. He cares a whole lot more about being able to look his kids and his grandkids in the eye than he does being able to win the next election against whomever Bill Shine and Steve Bannon and the president prop up to run against him because he wouldn't get on the team. And while I agree with Senator Romney on next to nothing,
really, even though you did vote for him, now.
He held policy positions at the time that I agreed with, and now I think those are policy positions that don't benefit large swaths of people because I read books and studies and essays.
Well, he's a true moderate, right? You would say he's a true moderate for the most part, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Right down the middle.
Wouldn't he be a Democrat's dream to like become a Democrat and actually secure that moderate vote? People voting.
I don't think it would. No, it would be disingenuous because on the big issues like choice and LGBTQ rights and stuff like that, his policy record gets obliterated in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think so. I mean, he's going to be exiled. But here's the other thing: is like at the end of the day, he walks on water in Utah, and he's got enough money to fund his own campaign. He doesn't need any help from the RNC, and he can probably beat anyway whoever they put up against him, including in a primary, as long as he's running in Utah.
But didn't we say was it me and you talking about the fact that Democrats need a nice, moderate, pro-life candidate that they can relate to kind of get through that side of the aisle? Not that they necessarily need that, but it wouldn't hurt to have a Democrat.
Not for president, but maybe for Doug Jones or Joe Manchin's seat, or some other vulnerable seat like, say, the one Martha McSally didn't actually win but was appointed to.
Right. I don't know. Wow, we're divided as fuck. Blue team, right. Red team, pick one and go with it. We're in a sad place.
But here's the thing: until you make some significant anti-corruption changes, campaign finance changes, things like that, those. I mean, look, when you do the tally, those most resistant to change more often find themselves on the red team. Those seeking regulation, even at their own personal expense, more often find themselves on the blue team. And look, you're always going to be able to point to people like Hillary Clinton, who are a billionaire's wet dream, regardless of the fact that they claim to be Democrats. Sure. But at the end of the day, the people who walk and talk, like Bernie and AOC and Warren, people like that, more often find themselves on the blue team. The ones who want deregulation, taxation policy that benefits the fewest number of people and a healthcare system that benefits the fewest number of people. Those guys are on the red team right now.
Yeah.
So you want access to healthcare, you want public funding of education, you want something that resembles anti-corruption regulation and policy in government. You got to vote blue right now.
Yeah. I sent you a text this morning, and it was an article from the Gallup poll that said that had Donald Trump as of this morning at his highest approval rating at 49% this morning. And I sent you the text with the caption, "Democrats be worried about this shit." Or am I wrong about that?
And what I send you back?
Let me see that text real quick, because we tend to do a lot of texting during the day, even when I'm at work. I sent you that. I sent you that, and then you responded.
It was something along the lines of like, well, what do you expect?
Well,
everybody, they all think they won because the other, the red state media didn't show them the real impeachment trial.
Well, you're talking about like the turnout. You're talking about turnout and half the country didn't see the real impeachment because they were watching Fox.
No, yeah, exactly. What I'm saying is there's a whole bunch of like Obama Trump people who probably watched Fox News predominantly through the impeachment and were led to believe by the overwhelming majority of their on-air personalities that the whole thing was a sham. And they were only shown selections of it because, as was noted throughout by, organizations like Media Matters and fact checkers and people like that, not just the other like cable networks. Mm-hmm. But Fox News carried a great deal less of the actual impeachment arguments and rather just presented summations of it by people like Judge Janine and what's the other guy's name that used to be a judge? Andrew Napolitano. It's people like that. And then, Alan Dershowitz comes up there and repeats himself, saying things like that if the president believes what he's doing is in the pursuit of the national interest, it's legal. And that is just simply not true, as was proven by United States v. Nixon.
Yeah.
So, some of this stuff is really scary, and even if you don't like Pocahontas, Idiot AOC, Crazy Bernie, Crooked Hillary, and their band of communist crazies, if that's how you feel about all those people, the president is actively and consistently becoming more despotic and wrestling away power from a supposedly co-equal branch of government in contrast with what the framers laid out. And that's insane. That's incredibly dangerous. And that's what's important for like people to look at, pay attention to.
But other than that, there's really no takeaways takeaways from there other than Romney, picking country over party, and that's it, pretty much. I mean,
the only way, if you don't like what you saw for the last couple of weeks, if you thought John Bolton should testify, if you thought, documents should have been released, if White House staff should have been forced to testify, the only thing you have left to do is vote blue in your primary and vote blue in November. And I'm not saying you got to do that for life and that you got to stop being a card-carrying Republican, but at least if you don't like what you've seen, like I said, in the last couple of years, months, weeks, what have you, at least in the short run, that's what the answer is.
No,
vote out people.
I'm not one. No, I'm not one to tell folks what to do with their shit. But again, if you feel like you're compelled to vote blue, go right ahead. If you still want to vote red,
that's what I'm saying. Is I'm not advocating one way or the other.
Oh, you can do it. You're the guest of the show. You can do that.
Yeah, well, and I will, but I'm making a conscious point not to. I'm simply laying out the if-then statement. If you are one of your neighbors in Florida and you don't like how this process was done, but you also don't like the Democrats, unfortunately, that means voting for against Rick Scott in the next election or whichever senator is up, this time. For the people in Arizona, that means voting against Martha McSally, against Jeff Sessions, things like that. And if they can flip the House and get different people in charge, there's an opportunity for things like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to actually protect us from predatory banking and what have you.
I will say this much, though, about, you're talking about, like, sectionals and whatnot. I do like our governor here in Florida. I have to admit, DeSantis is winning me over. I have to admit. If right now he runs for re-election.
What policy or position in particular pro DeSantis?
Well, he's anti-drilling. He's pro teachers here, trying to get raises for teachers here. He's doing a lot of good, man. He's actually reversed some of the Rick Scott stuff here, which is actually some of the environmental gaps that Rick Scott had here in the last couple of years. That he's actually reversed some of that shit. So he's a lot more moderate than I thought. Part of the reason why I didn't vote for him in the election was because I thought he had nothing. Part of the reason why I didn't, I'm going to say that part. The reason why I didn't vote for him in 2018 was because all he ran on was on Trump. I'm Trump light of Florida.
Yeah, reading his kids the Republican platform and the bedside story and those cheesy commercials.
Right. What do you bring to the table in this purple state? You know what I'm saying? What do you bring to the table?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to say I love everything he's doing, but he's doing a pretty good job. I don't hate the guy. I think he's doing a good job.
Well, see, and that's where I'm the first. I'll give credit where credit's due. I mean, if the guy's fighting climate change, if the guy's getting teachers better pay and better conditions in the state of Florida, that's great. I don't obviously know enough about his policy report card to be able to go line by line, but hey, credit where credit's due. Those are both things I support.
He's doing a better job Rick Scott is.
Paying teachers and regulating drilling are two things I am fully in favor of.
Even though Rick Scott's still our senator, fuck. But whatever.
Oh my God! So I don't know if I ever told you this story, but I actually saw him at an airport.
Voldemort?
I forget where I was flying. Oh, I was flying through Albuquerque. I had some work up in Colorado, and it was easiest to fly there through Albuquerque. And I saw him and a couple of his press aides or staffers in the airport, and it took everything I had not to walk up to him and give him an earful. Politely, respectfully say, hey, look, I'm a citizen, I'm not one of your voters, but I think some of these positions, for example, on stuff like immigration and climate, are bigger than your party or petty differences or individual state borders. Climate change is going to kill the planet, or we're going to kill our own planet. So, kindly do something, please.
Right. Okay, let's bash the Democrats now, because we have to do that too on this podcast when we talk. Real quick, though, give me some update.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about the Iowa Democratic Party.
So what is the update right now in Iowa, right now?
There is I think something like 3/4 of the districts have reported. It looks like Bernie and Buttigieg are neck and neck somewhere in the 25 to 28% range. Elizabeth Warren is kind of hanging in there at third, around 16-18%, and Biden is bringing up the rear in the 14 to 16% range, and then a mix of 0 to 3% went to the amalgamation of Steyer, Yang, Bloomberg, and Klobuchar, or what have you.
Well, let's talk Biden real quick, Mark, because that's obviously the biggest shock of the entire thing in Iowa, is that how bad he polled. He's barely beating Klobuchar right now. Is this a glitch, or is this a sign of things to come?
I don't think, you know me, I'm kind of cynical about Iowa in the first place. We talked through the whole thing about sort of how it accidentally became first anyway. I don't really think this Iowa primary taught us much other than that we got to come up with a different way to kick off the election season.
all is a starting point. Yeah.
Here's the thing you got to understand. Look, the caucuses themselves apparently went very, very smoothly. For all of the legitimate arguments that can be made about the fact that they're undemocratic because they don't allow people with lives or children or disabilities full access, that it's weird. You could have to be caucusing for or against, with or against, say, your boss or somebody in a position of power in your life. There's 100 different arguments we can make about why caucuses are stupid. But one of the things that you can't really argue about them is their legitimacy and their accuracy in a lot of ways, because at least in 2020, all of them were filmed. They were like in high school gyms or in community college gyms, and they were filmed and or audio recorded, so everybody knew where everybody fell. Where the big disconnect seems to have happened is in a number of changes that were made between how the individual districts reported their numbers and what the Iowa Democratic Party was doing to tabulate those numbers.
Right.
So that whole collection process from the individual, like there was nothing went wrong with the actual caucus process of, okay, you know, you idiots in that corner for Biden, you idiots in that corner for Bernie, you idiots in this corner for Klobuchar, and then, you know, they make their cuts. Like that shit all went like clockwork. It was at the end with their scoreboards getting everything reported to, you know, the central office.
Okay. Because I gotta be honest with you, when I heard it happen on Monday, I'm thinking I'm thinking inside job. I don't give a fuck. Like after what happened in 2016, man, my antennas are up. Anything I see looks fishy, I'm gonna go ahead and just assume that the Democratic powers that be are behind this.
Yeah, you know, really this has very little to do with the actual Democratic National Committee, because this is run by the state parties. Obviously, there's funding and some oversight in a presidential year, but it's not like, you know, Tom Perez is pulling the strings on this like he would be, say, you know, leading up to a convention or something like that. No. That's not what this is. But you better believe the National Party has some people on their way to Iowa, if they're not already there, going, what in the fuck happened? You have 15 minutes to fix it, and then when you're done, pack your shit and go, because we're tearing this whole thing down and starting from scratch.
Isn't Buttigieg actually the most conservative of the top candidates? Like, in terms of, like, the Democratic race, obviously? Is it the most conservative one of the 4 or 5?
I mean, that depends on if we're talking about people who matter or people who don't, as far as, like, the actual polling goes. But I think there's probably an argument to be made that Buttigieg, Biden, Steyer, and Bloomberg all kind of fall in the same bucket. Amy Klobuchar starts trending a little more towards the left, I think,
right,
than those guys.
Then Yang.
And then, you know, kind of on, and then Yang sort of a little closer to the far left, and then way over there in the, you know, the deep blue waters of
Bernie Warren.
By Bernie and Warren.
Elizabeth Sanders. Yeah, that's what I figured. Like, so, like, hypothetically, the Democrats on top, the elites, I guess would have minded Buttigieg win, I guess, right? I mean, if that happens.
Yeah, again, I don't think it's going to mean much really until we start to get through Nevada and South Carolina.
Yeah.
That we're going to start to really have an idea. And then obviously Super Tuesday is probably going to pretty well seal it up.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, to me, I think because the excitement of the election is the kickoff, I think we do overrate Iowa a little bit. I think, to me, New Hampshire's when I think New Hampshire's when things start really get going, and then you get to Super Tuesday, and of course that's when you start seeing some of the real numbers come in.
Well, sure, and you know it can't be disregarded that, frankly, you know, you don't have states that even start to resemble the rest of the country until you get to South Carolina and Nevada.
Well, exactly, yeah. So right now you're north, then you go south, you know, and then you'll start seeing real grassroots numbers, and you start seeing who the Democratic people actually do want to represent them in the nomination process. So I don't know.
Yeah, but you know, it's funny because so far through this thing, I've been saying the only one that sounds to me like somebody who can actually win and beat Donald Trump is Bernie. But you know, I've seen a big growth of Elizabeth Warren through the process. It was kind of funny. Last night I was watching the returns come in, and my girlfriend was like making dinner and doing her thing in the kitchen and stuff, and sort of doing laundry, coming and going. And at different points, she was like listening to different people as they were speaking, and she heard Senator Warren, Senator Klobuchar, and Mayor Pete all during their speeches.
Mm-hmm.
And she thought, and now, granted, you got to understand, this is a woman who is like completely apolitical, barely will watch segments on the national news if I'm like, hey, this is really important, you need to watch this one. But at the end of the day, completely apolitical, total opposite of me in that way. And she walks in and she goes, that first lady, she was kind of annoying, referring to Amy Klobuchar.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's puttering around doing some shit, and then she comes back in, and Elizabeth Warren's talking. She goes, she sounds good. Who's that? And I said, that's Elizabeth Warren. She goes, yeah, I like that. That sounds good. She sounds good. And then Mayor Pete came on, and I said, so what do you think of this? And she goes, I mean, looks cool and everything, but nah. And it was really obvious. I sent you pictures of it, how badly he stacked like 5 black women, an Indian woman, and an Indian guy in the very front of his picture. But then when you saw the zoomed out picture of his risers, you could see that those were like the only 8 people of color in the entire crowd. And it was like, really, you just put them all up front to make it look like a bunch of black people came to Pete's rally? Like,
wow.
Come on. Come on.
Well, I mean, who are the blacks? I mean, to me, the blacks connect more with Joe Biden anyway. The older blacks connect with Joe Biden. The younger blacks might connect more with, say, Sanders and Warren. You know what I'm saying?
That's what the numbers pretty much bear out. And I think really until the candidates come to town and rubber really starts to meet the road, old black folks are going to be like, I'm going with Joe. I know him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I think
until somebody gives, and I think it's too early. I think it's too early for a lot of old black folks to give a shit.
Yeah.
They got more important things to worry about in their lives. And when it comes more, more prescient and immediate, their nieces, nephews, and grandchildren will convince them to look at shit, maybe. And if they do, maybe they'll change their minds. And if not, they'll vote for Joe.
Right. Okay.
If at all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's switch gears a little bit here. It's been a week and a half since the tragedy in Calabasas. We haven't had a chance to talk about it really on the podcast. We spoke on the phone when everything happened. Hours after we found Kobe Bryant passed away.
This is the first Kobe cast, huh?
Yeah, this is the first Kobe cast you and I've had. Week and a half since the passing. I gotta be honest with you, I did, and look, I was always a huge fan of his. Well, I say always. I grew to be a huge fan through the years, understanding him and whatnot as they got older. But I gotta tell you, Mark, and not because I'm a Laker guy and all that, although I love Magic, all that, but this one really fucked me up the last week and a half, man. In such ways that you wouldn't even imagine. I couldn't watch basketball until last night.
Well, it's like a different people talked about that through the actual scope of like the specific mental health components, and there's a lot of different reasons for that. It's sudden and unexpected, and it is sort of the death of memories, positive memories you may have that are associated to that person or the people you were with at the time that you experienced that memory. So that's one component of it. The other component is that the suddenness of it and the tragic nature of it all invokes your own sense of mortality.
Correct.
And your own fear of death and your own like realization of just exactly how fragile, frail, and meaningless you are in the grand scheme of it all. From a numbers standpoint, not to say that people don't matter.
Right.
But we're moving quickly.
You're just one of many.
Yeah, and then of course for you as a parent, there's that whole other level to it of just like kids, protecting your kids, leaving your kids, where it invokes this whole other layer, like multi-pronged terror reaction.
Yeah. It's funny because I've started to really process everything now. Obviously, in the moment when I found out about him and Gianna, and Gianna put me over the edge because obviously being a father, and and just imagining being in that moment, if they even had a moment before everything happened. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we talked about that. Like, we knew that like the helicopter was out of control, for 15 seconds before it crashed.
Oh, Jesus.
So, you think about that. And I mean, really, like, I mean, if you want to torture yourself, sit there and do the, like, 1001 and do that to 15.
Yeah.
And imagine doing that at 180 miles an hour in a helicopter that's swirling around and around and around and telling your child it's going to be okay when you know full fucking well it's not.
Right.
Like that agony, that layer of it, that in and of itself is enough to turn you into a puddle of goo in the fetal position crying in the corner. And you'd be well within your wits to feel that way.
Right.
Having never been a Laker or Kobe fan, just by virtue of the fact that a plane with 9 people on it, 3 of whom were children, or 4 of whom were children, were just like swept off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Gnarly.
It's insane.
Really, really, really gnarly. And and for, people who aren't sure, of course, my father-in-law is the perfect, like, old world, grumpy old man, person to be the caricature of this point. But it's like, looking at me and my brother-in-law, and he's like, what do you guys care? What are you crying about? You didn't know Kobe. And it's like, dude, you don't get it. But, and they can't and won't and never will. But for all those people, you're well within your rights to be broken up about it for a variety of reasons. And it has, the least of which is, were you a Laker fan?
Right. Well, I explained to you my truck with Kobe. I mean, we've gone this many times through the years, you and I.
Sure.
And
your arc with Kobe very, very similarly tracks with my arc and my arc with LeBron.
Yeah, absolutely. But
we've had similar come to the basketball Jesus.
But I think
with each of them.
Right. But I think with me though, there was a lot. Looking back now, 20 years ago, 18 years ago, his first couple years in the league, number 8, it was a lot on my end, a lot of immaturity too, because I don't like you because you're trying to be like Michael Jordan and you're arrogant, by the way, also too on top of that. But here I am at 19 years old trying to process that. Whereas
and
me at 40,
full well when they're playing in gyms in the off season, he's kicking the shit out of Tim Hardaway.
Right. Well, that didn't really bother me. It's more so
hell.
like I guess growing up, I had an expectation of what a superstar should be. And Kobe, was trying to get that before he earned it. And again, that was my 18-year-old, 19-year-old self saying this.
And I had a totally different end to that, in the sense that, like, so when Kobe was drafted, or was going to be drafted, traded for, or whatever, it was the summer between 6th and 7th grade, and I don't remember the exact, like, specific chronology of it, like, chicken, egg, what have you, but it was within, minutes, hours, days of finding out we were getting Shaq that we also found out about Kobe. And it was like a Saturday morning in the summer, and I was playing, like, one-on-one with my neighbor in his driveway, and his dad came running out with the LA Times. And he's like, you guys aren't going to believe this. Not only are we getting Shaq, Jerry West found this kid from Philly who's, like, going to be the next Michael Jordan, and the Lakers are trading for him, and he's coming straight out of high school. I'm like, what? No way.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that summer, Chick Hearn, Nick Van Exel, Eddie Jones, like, you're seeing these summer league games, or like these Laker training camp things that are early season on Prime Ticket 25 years ago or 20 years ago, whatever it was.
Days, Prime Ticket.
And you're just like, holy shit, that guy really does look a lot like Mike.
Yeah.
And when you're 12 years old, you just like I was So I was in first grade when Michael won his first championship. So it's like, you're going to get a whole other run of this insane guy, and now he's on my team. What? And then three-peat, 81-point game, MVP, everything else, 60-point game runs, setting the record at MSG, like all the obvious stuff. It's unreal.
To me, for me, everything changed for me in Colorado. Like, I started feeling bad for the kid. Like, it's like, okay. Because I followed the case.
You and I talked about that a lot offline, and, we would be remiss if we didn't have the Love Fest without paying due respect to the conversation, to the people involved. We don't know. Hopefully we'll never know if what you've heard and I've heard about the Daily Mail looking for the story is true. Hopefully they never get it. But, I went back and read the Kobe apology statement, like the day after he died, and I think I sent it to you. And it's very clear that he's acknowledging and taking accountability for the fact that, this woman felt as though consensual sex was not had, and she was not wrong for feeling that way. Like, his apology made that all pretty clear. And when you, I think about it even through the scope of Me Too, how many of the people who were sort of on the fringe, had they done the Kobe statement, would they probably have been forgiven and not be, where they find themselves? So there's that. Again, we don't know, probably won't know, hopefully don't find out. Everyone can have their opinion. Everyone's right, so long as their opinion isn't grossly disrespectful, like a particular comedian, Ari or Ali.
Ari Shafir. He got trounced. His talent agency already dropped him as a result. Now, granted, that's his kind of humor, though. He does it to a lot of people too, not just Kobe, but time plays.
Yeah, but you know what? Here's the thing. The other 7 people in that helicopter whose last name wasn't Bryant are already going to get overshadowed, and the tragedy isn't going to be any less acute for the people that are connected to those 7 folks. And so to be so indignantly disrespectful of those people's memory and the obvious truth that their memory, it may not receive its full recognition because they died with 2 famous people, to go to that length and take that shot, even if it were true, even if it were Mike Tyson.
Right.
It's still, like, dude, it's just a shitty thing to do. 9 people just died in a horrible accident. Shut the fuck up.
This is what leads me to the next question here, is what do you make of all these, all of a sudden, in my opinion, these woke-ass, fake woke liberals, especially, on Twitter, these writers, all of a sudden decide to litigate Colorado again 17 years later, not even a full fucking 2 hours after he died.
It's one of those things that I just sort of knew was going to happen in the internet age, and I was actually glad I was snowboarding with friends when I found out about everything.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's an unavoidable symptom of the era in which we live. It's just a product of the internet, in that it, no matter what your fetish is, no matter how ugly you are, the internet gives you the ability to connect with somebody else that feels or thinks the way you do. And if you get enough of those idiots together, they actually start to believe that their position has validity and a place in civil discourse, and it just simply fucking doesn't. Just because the internet gives you a platform does not mean you have a say. And again, history will give us plenty of time to relitigate the life and behavior of Kobe Bryant. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to happen within a week of his death.
Well, I want to close this real quick. Here's the reason why this one hit me hard. And I finally was in the process of like 2 days ago. And I might have texted you about this. I'm not sure if I did or not. Because again, you were talking about how like your trick of LeBron is something of mine with Kobe. It's similar in that way. I grew to love Kobe Bryant. I grew to respect him in a lot of ways. And for me, the reason why Kobe Bryant to me, like even though Michael Jordan's the GOAT, and I'll still say that going forward, I will always have reference to Kobe Bryant. Number one, I always find Kobe Bryant more fascinating because Kobe Bryant felt real to me in a way that Michael Jordan was not. And obviously Michael Jordan's
You're
prime,
saying things that very much echo like LA sports people. Go
right.
on.
Michael Jordan is the GOAT, in my opinion. Yes, no one's going to dispute that. But Michael Jordan in my teen years, Michael Jordan at the prime of his career felt unattainable. Kobe Bryant did. Colorado humbled him. Colorado made him real to me. You know, him becoming a family man. You know, going through the stuff of Vanessa. You know, having children.
Being politically engaged, and using his platform for doing more than just enriching his own portfolio.
And guess what? Being more honest and brutally honest publicly post Colorado, you know, about things, about how he operates as an athlete in a way Jordan wasn't. He was more accessible to me in that way. And he also died in this generation still. He's still this generation. Michael Jordan is already a generation removed now. 17 years ago, he retired. Okay? So, if you're 25 years old or 20 years old, you still experience Kobe Bryant at least part of his prime. You know? So, this one hurts more because it's within the time period of experiencing the same guy you just had not even 4 years ago.
Sure. I mean, if you're under 30, you might have Jays and your dad and all your uncles and the guys at the barber shop talked about Michael Jordan, but you didn't see him except on ESPN.
Yeah, on YouTube. You know, so Kobe was more real to me, and I think because also we're almost the same age, growing up with him. He became a dad, 4 kids, 4 girls. You know, going through a public situation with his wife, fixing that.
Well, and
having
in
another
so many
one.
ways, he's really the. Like, you and I kind of consider, you know, the Michael Jordan era, the 90s, the Space Jam era, like our golden age of basketball, because it's sort of that beautiful crossover point to where they all started to make a shit ton of money and become superstars, but they would still fight a motherfucker if he fouled them too hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Kobe is officially, I think, the very last one of that class of superstar.
He is, except...
And even as close in age as they are, like, there's a few guys that have that sort of throwback mentality, like Jimmy Butler. LeBron, KD, definitely not. I mean, like, LeBron's big and strong and tough and everything, and I wouldn't want to have to stand in front of him if he's coming down the lane at full speed. That's not... I'm not saying he's a little bitch or anything.
Right.
But there's just a different approach. There's like, Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson talk about this on their podcast, All the Smoke, all the time. It's just a different approach. It's kind of a street thing. It's kind of a hood thing that, like, 21st century kids just don't have. And I think that while, like, Jimmy is a throwback to that, Kobe was officially the last of the class.
Yeah, and the thing with Kobe, he really wasn't that personally. He just did that because that's what he knew. Like, he wasn't a, hood kid. He was upper scale guy. Spoke 5 different languages.
No, but dudes who were legitimately scary, who came from the streets and whatnot, like, didn't mess with Kobe.
Right. I think because his intellect was
because they knew he would kill. Like, he was tough. He may not have come from the hood, but, like, nobody messed with him.
Yeah, and again, he felt real to me, and that's why this one fucked me up. Because if Michael Jordan died, and Michael Jordan's the probably biggest athlete we've ever seen in American history, American sports. If he dies now, it still may not be as big as what Kobe's going through now, because Kobe's is so immediate. You know what I'm saying?
Kobe is the first NBA star to die anywhere close to the prime of his life. I mean, The closest thing that's comparable is, like, Wilt Chamberlain.
And he died 23 years
after. The very first NBA MVP is still alive.
Yeah. Yeah. My buddy of mine, we'll close on this when my sons woke up. People say, my buddy of mine was saying how, like, the saddest day in NBA history was Kobe Bryant dying. And at first I was like, that can't be, that's crazy. But then I thought about it, I was like, the only other sad day we ever had was Magic Johnson announcing he had HIV in 91. Because at the time, we thought of that as a death sentence. But Kobe Bryant dying right now in this generation's superstar.
No, the closest thing I could equate it to really is Princess Diana.
Of course, right, absolutely. Exactly. Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's when you talk about global impact.
Yeah.
first life as a princess, then second life as an activist post separation and divorce.
And still very much in the public eye at the time too.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think there's a lot of interesting synchronicity between their lives and their deaths and whatnot. So yeah, I don't think there's anything that really comes close to it as far as like a social impact event.
I agree, 100%.
And then when you just see like the outcry in like the city of Los Angeles, like, I mean, I was at the Plaza myself at LA Live Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because I was there for a conference for my day job. And then I went back Thursday night with some friends and my SLR camera to take pictures. So like I marked up a pair of shoes and left them out there and whatnot.
Right.
But what was crazy was on Friday night, which was the first Laker game since, was like the surge in the amount of stuff that got left.
Yeah. So anyway, my sons woke up, so I'm gonna let you go. Great conversation today as always. We'll probably check in around Super Tuesday time and see where we're at in the Democratic primaries and all that. Follow him on Twitter, guys, at Francois Marc. Anything else? That's about it. Anything else on the plug?
No, man.
That's it?
Stay tuned in. The primaries are going to start getting exciting. We got 96 districts reporting. It looks like Buttigieg is the winner, Bernie close behind, and Warren and Biden bringing up the rear.
Well, here we go, Mark. 2020 is here.
Roughly 10 days till most pitchers and catchers will have reported.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to Los Angeles, Mookie Betts. Farewell, Jock Peterson, Kenta Maeda, and the others.
This is their all-in move, man. This is all-in move. This is it.
We'll see you in Arizona and New Hampshire, sports fans.
You know it. All right, brother. We'll talk soon, okay?
Indeed. Have a great night.
Be good. Thank you.